Before we start today's episode, I would like to quickly read you our podcast disclaimer. The content in this podcast is for general reference and educational purposes only. It is not meant to be complete or exhaustive or to be applicable to any specific individual's medical condition. No information provided in this podcast constitutes medical advice and is not an attempt to practice medicine or to provide specific medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. This podcast does not create a physician-patient relationship and is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Please do not rely on this podcast for emergency medical treatment. Remember that everyone is different, so make sure you consult your own healthcare professional before seeking any new treatment and before you alter, suspend, or initiate a new change in your routine. Welcome to The Starting Gate. We're your hosts, Dr. Kitty Dotson
and Dr. Sarah Sheets,
two internal medicine doctors who spent years practicing traditional primary care. Over time, we realized something was missing from modern healthcare. A real understanding of how everyday lifestyle choices impact overall health.
We'll help you cut through the noise of the countless health influencers and their conflicting opinions, because no matter who you follow, the basics of lifestyle medicine are at the heart of it all.
Well, welcome back to The Starting Gate. We're really excited about our topic today, which is habit change and how to apply small habit change to each of the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine. So we went through the 6 pillars last week, but just to remind you, and we'll keep reminding you all the time, they are nutrition, physical activity, sleep, stress reduction, social connectedness, and reducing risky substances.
So habits. What are habits? Habits are the building blocks of our daily lives, and they have a big impact on shaping who we are and what we become. Whether we realize it or not, the small repetitive actions we take each day, such as waking up, how we move, how we eat, how we manage our stress, these are going to work together to have a cumulative effect over time on our health. The good thing about habits is they can reinforce positive change. Once you get a healthy habit established, then it requires less mental energy to maintain it. So that's why we want to put such an emphasis on creating habits. So to do that, let's talk about some of the psychology behind habit formation.
One of the most common things you may hear about is the habit loop. And Charles Duhigg, in his book, The Power of Habit, was the one who really brought attention to the habit loop. And many other authors and psychologists have used this and their principles when teaching and studying habits. The habit loop consists of 3 parts. The first is the cue, followed by the routine, and then the reward. So the cue is what is triggering the habit, what causes you to initiate the habit. The routine is the behavior itself, and then the reward is the outcome that happens that reinforces the habit to keep happening. So, for example, the cue could be waking up in the morning, the routine is making coffee, and the reward is the energy boost you feel after drinking it. On the flip side of that, you could have the same cue, which is waking up in the morning, and then the routine is laying in bed and scrolling through Instagram. And the reward is the dopamine hit that you get when you look at social media. So you may not like the second habit that you have if you find that you're losing 20 or 30 minutes of your morning. So when you're thinking about starting new habits or trying to stop or replace old habits, take the time to really recognize the parts of that loop. What's the cue for that habit? What's the routine? And then what's the reward that you're getting that's making you continue to do it?
Okay, the next idea that we want to talk about is small, sustainable change. And we can't talk about that without highlighting James Clear in the book Atomic Habits. And if you're trying to work on habit change, I highly recommend buying this book and listening to it because it really gets the whole idea of coming up with overall goals and breaking them down to small, sustainable change. Great way to think about this. Say you have the goal of decreasing your social media use. You're just going to attack it, and that's all you say. I want to decrease my social media use, and you really don't know where to go, or you don't know how to motivate yourself to keep going because you don't know if you're actually reaching your goal. Instead, I would start it by saying I want to decrease my social media use. And to start, I'm going to not get on social media when I wake up in the morning. And so by not doing that, I'm going to reduce my time by 20, 30 minutes, however long you spend on social media first thing in the morning, and get that part of the habit down and make it a part of your regular routine. And then you can work on the next part of reducing your social media and focus on another habit. Maybe it's, I'm not going to use social media before bed. And then you're going to reduce by another 30 minutes. And again, you're working to that overall goal of reduction of social media, but you're putting it as small habits to focus on at a time, and you're making sure you obtain them before you build on to the next one.
Yeah, I'll have to say Atomic Habits really helped me to make some changes in my own life. And pretty much all the big habits I've changed, I have done in that small way, because I am not one that's really good at just overhauling something straight from the get-go. So physical activity is something that I started with really small. When I was working a lot, had young kids, I really wasn't making any time for exercise. And I think I said before, I was only getting about 3,000 steps a day. And so first I just started saying, okay, I'm going to get 5,000 steps a day. And then I wanted to get something more intense going. And so I downloaded a free app I found called 7-Minute Workout. And I was like, okay, I can commit 7 minutes. I can do 7 minutes. So I started adding in that 7-minute workout. And then once that became a habit and that wasn't hard to do, I started adding in some weights, and then just slowly over time. But I never set a high goal for myself. So 5 or 10 minutes. And even now today for me, just so I know that I'm going to stick with my habit, I keep it low, 15 minutes. I have to get 15 minutes in. But most of the time I enjoy it, and so I want to get more. But if you can just keep those small steps, then you can find yourself meeting your goal, and then you feel more proud of yourself and you want to keep building on that. Okay, that brings us to our next topic, which is habit stacking. And this was coined by S.J. Scott in his book called 97 Small Life Changes That Take 5 Minutes or Less. Habit stacking leverages something that you're already doing regularly, and then you add a new habit to that. So when you stack a new habit onto an existing routine, you're not creating a whole new, brand new sequence from scratch. You're building on something that already has a solid foundation and that you're already used to doing. So this helps you bypass that common mental hurdle and forgetting to start something that can derail you from sticking with your new habit. For example, if you wanted to start a new habit of moving more, you could stack it with making your morning coffee. You're already in that routine of making your morning coffee. So while it's brewing, you commit to doing some push-ups or doing some squats during that time that it's brewing. Or it could be that you always want to use that time to write down the 3 main things that you want to get done for that day and something you're grateful for. So you know you're going to make coffee that morning, and then you stack on whatever habit that you want to make sure you do while you're already doing the habit that you always do. Do you have any other examples of that, Sarah?
Yes, I really like stacking habits as part of my wind down routine. And one that I wanted to start incorporating was practicing gratitude. And I just found myself, I want to do this, but I just didn't get it done because I wasn't connecting it with anything. So as soon as I made gratitude a part of my wind down routine, it stuck. So as soon as I get in bed, or my husband and I get in bed, we have a habit now that we both talk about 3 things we're grateful for that happened in our day. And so we both do that. We hold each other accountable, but we stacked it into the fact that it's as soon as we're, getting ready for bed, we do our gratitude. And overall, that made it stick. Despite all the other ways I tried to do it, it didn't. But as soon as I made it part of the wind down routine, it was solid. So this easy concept works very well.
And I like that one, Sarah, because that also helped your social connectedness with your husband. And that would there'll be something you could do with your kids at night. So, maybe it's part of your reading routine with them at night. Then you stack on going through your day with them on practicing that gratitude. So habit stacking, I think, is probably one of the best ways for you to stick to something that you're trying to add to your day.
All right. So we're going to transition now and talk about habit change in relation to each of these 6 pillars. And we're going to give some examples of maybe some common bad habits, as well as some easy, low-hanging fruit when it comes to making new habits as well. And then give you some personal reflection on things that both of us have changed in our lives and those habits that have made a big difference. starting with nutrition, I know many people can come up with lots of different bad nutritional habits that are out there, but some of the ones that we see most commonly with patients are late night snacking, relying on too many ultra-processed foods and refined carbs, emotional eating or mindless eating, using food as a reward, and not really planning for meals. All of these things together are something that you can use as a framework to think about, well, where can I start to try to change some of these habits?
Yeah, and so last week I talked to you about looking at your ingredient list. And so I mentioned this before, but one of the first things I started with when trying to make better habits in regards to my nutrition was looking at sugar. And so, again, looking at the label of everything. And you've got to realize that the labels will try to trick you. So it may not say sugar. It may say evaporated cane juice, or it may say dextrose, or it may say, what's another one, Sarah? Sucrose. Any of those things that end in ose are going to be sugar. And so one of the first habits I started for myself was anything that had sugar or another word for sugar in the first 5 ingredients, I tried not to eat. Then you can kind of focus on other things, like maybe you want to work on adding fruits and vegetables. Maybe just do a survey of a week and see how many plants that you're eating in a week. And remember that plants are not just fruits and vegetables, so you can count nuts. So if you eat pecans and almonds, there's 2. You can count seeds, and that's one way that I get a lot of extra things in is with seeds as well. So if you can get up to 10 plants in a week and do that consistently, then you can try to keep going up, maybe see if you can get to 15. And ideally, you want to get up to 30 or more plants a week. And I have found this is one of my favorite habits is counting my plants. It's very entertaining for me. And I actually, this week, am having my kids do it too to see if that will motivate them to maybe try to get some more in. If you start doing it, you'll find yourself just adding vegetables and things to your dishes that maybe you didn't before to increase that number.
And in turn, by doing this simple habit, you're actually doing so many more things for your body. Increasing those plants, you're increasing your fiber, you're increasing your overall micronutrients, your phytonutrients. One habit that is so impactful, and sometimes we make things more complicated than they should be. So just spending that time thinking about, all right, I'm not going to get too much into the weeds here. I'm just going to think about how many different plants have I ate, or have I gotten those 5 servings of fruits and vegetables today? It can make it seem easier to do the things that you're wanting to accomplish. Another one that I love talking about when it comes to nutrition is focusing on the habit of meal planning. Time and time again, people feel overwhelmed making nutritional changes because the habit of meal planning isn't established. So sometimes before even diving into the details of what to eat, I really like to have patients focusing on how can I plan for my week so as I make these adjustments, I can actually accomplish them. That is a great habit that if you don't currently meal plan and each day you're figuring out on the fly what you're going to be having for dinner or lunch or breakfast, starting with that habit can give you such great tools to then adjust your nutrition once you actually have the meal planning down.
Yeah, because most of the time when you're deciding on the fly, especially you're already running late for something, you're tired from whatever's been going on that day, you're probably not going to make the healthiest choice for yourself. So if you've planned it out, you take that load off your shoulders, you've already decided what you're going to make, you've already made it easy on yourself to follow through with that habit.
Absolutely. Next pillar is physical activity. And these barriers are, again, common amongst all people. Their lack of time, lack of motivation, that fatigue or low energy, fear that you're going to do it and you'll hurt yourself, not knowing what to do. Am I wasting my time? Or I can't get in a consistent routine, or just not prioritizing it. All these are very common barriers. And most of the studies on exercise show a similar benefit to cardiovascular health with one long exercise versus short bursts of exercise. And I think Kitty mentioned this last week. But sometimes that's how you just get started. Just do shorter periods throughout the day instead of trying to completely implode your current schedule in life and sneak them in. Because these frequent bursts are also improving mitochondrial function and helping with weight loss. They still count, and they're worth doing.
Yeah, they definitely still count. And you want to just think about what is easy for you. So maybe it's just keeping a dumbbell next to your desk. And every time you finish checking your emails, you just stand up and you do squats or you do some bicep curls with that dumbbell. And keeping it there and in your sight will help remind you that you wanted to do that. Do things while you're doing other things. Like when you're unloading the dishwasher, you can squat down to pick up the fork or kind of get in that deadlift position and use those body movements as you unload the dishwasher. When you're filling up your water, you can stand there and do calf raises. Watching TV is a great time to just pace back and forth and get those steps in for the day. So just add it into your normal routine so you're not committing 60 minutes of your day, which is harder to stick with initially.
I really find that exercise is just this bucket that many people have an expectation of what it should look like, and they feel like they can't achieve it, then they just give up and they don't do it at all. And I routinely talk to patients and help them feel comfortable with starting with these small habits and building up on these routines, because a sedentary life has such a negative impact that any movement, if you go away with anything from the show today, any movement is better than no movement. So just start small and get it a part of your routine some way, somehow, and let go of that perfection.
That brings us to our next pillar, which is sleep. And so one thing I just wanted to mention about sleep before we even get into habits around sleep is that you have to get good sleep in order to build these good habits. When you get into your deep sleep at night, that is when you're reinforcing the neural circuitry that you're trying to create with these new habits. And so if you're never prioritizing sleep and you're not getting enough of that deep sleep, you're making it so much harder on yourself to ever make these habits stick. So sleep is really important for reinforcing that and helping you to be successful in any of these habits, no matter what pillar you're trying to work on.
And some of the common bad habits when we talk about sleep and things people struggle with, they may not realize that it's impacting their sleep, or they do and are just having a hard time adjusting that bad habit. Things that we should consider are inconsistent sleep schedules. There is something to say about having a different schedule every day. Shift workers have worse health outcomes for a reason. Sleep makes a difference when it comes to chronic conditions. And just a difference in your weekend sleep schedule versus your weekday sleep schedule can impact your sleep. Going to bed too late makes a difference. Again, like we talked about last week, trying to steal time from sleep is not a good idea. When it comes to insomnia that so many people deal with on a regular basis, and it's something that I've personally dealt with myself, is going to bed stressed or anxious and not winding down, or using electronics to try to wind down and thinking that that's going to help you sleep better, but instead is doing the opposite. Eating before bed, that late night eating, many people have heard the message that impacts their metabolic health. It's not good for weight loss, etc., but it's also not good for sleep when you go to bed with a full stomach, whether or not you have reflux. It's not just about that. It actually can change the quality of sleep you have when you eat too late. Alcohol. This message just needs to be heard loud and clear, because so many people use alcohol as a way to fall asleep, thinking that they're getting good sleep because maybe they are struggling with some insomnia and they use the alcohol to help sedate them slightly to be able to fall asleep. But in return, you're getting disrupted REM sleep and you're going to wake up more often. You're not getting good quality sleep. So that is the last thing that you need to be doing in order to improve your sleep. And then many people use their bedroom for non-sleeping activities. You're watching TV in bed, or you just get in bed as soon as you get home, and then you're not actually falling asleep for hours. Our minds need to know that our bed is only for sleep for it to work properly. So these are just a few ideas. There's sleep health is its own ginormous bucket, but these are some of the big hitters that we like to talk about when it comes to sleep.
So just maybe thinking about that, and then thinking about where's one place that you want to start working on your habits surrounding sleep. I know for me, in the past, I struggled with late night eating, and really I had wanted to stop that in order to improve my weight. But it wasn't until I realized its impact on my sleep that I was able to be successful with it. So I would typically be at night doing the dishes and making the kids' lunchbox for the next day, or finishing notes from clinic after seeing my patients. And while I was doing that, I would be having a handful of goldfish or a handful of this while I was cleaning up. And then I had read about how late night eating affected your actual sleep. And I thought, well, let me just see if that is true for me. Let me just see if I can stick to this for 10 days and I'll see if it makes a difference at all in my sleep. And I was shocked because it really did. And I slept so much better and my energy was better. I really could not believe it. It was seeing that it improved my sleep and energy that actually made me stop snacking, when before I had just looked at it as a weight thing. I wanted to stop doing it for that reason. So when you try things and you see an improvement, it really will reinforce the habit, and it has helped me so much.
I have to say, with my own struggles with sleep, one thing that I thought I was helping myself was by, I'm just going to keep working until I get that to-do list for the day done, right? Like everyone has their to-do list. They don't like to move things over to the next day. And I thought if I did that, I could shut off my anxious mind and I would be able to sleep better at night, right? That's how I thought I was gaming the system. But what I didn't realize, it wasn't working at all. But instead, I kept my mind so active up until when I hopped in bed that it just continued to be active. And I wasn't relaxing. I didn't do anything to just chill out at the end of the day. And that's not good, because then I was building this cycle of getting in bed and then being anxious that I wouldn't fall asleep, even though I completed my to-do list, and it was vicious. And then I was dealing with insomnia. So in order to stop that, I really had to enforce what I call the wind down routine. And you'll hear me talk about that routinely. That wind down routine has to start an hour before bedtime. I cannot fall asleep well unless I do it, because my mind has to relax before sleep. We, again, have experienced many of these things, and we want to share our own stories to help you all. And just realize many people deal with sleep issues, and we're all trying to figure it out together. But it is something that we have to prioritize because it is necessary. And then that goes right into the next pillar of stress management that also is crucial.
Yeah, and some of the habits that people often use to manage their stress that may not be serving them well are emotional eating, procrastination, alcohol or substance use, overworking. And a lot of people deal with stress by just immersing themselves in their work, and it lets them kind of avoid dealing with something else in their life, or it distracts them from another stress in their life. So overworking is something I think a lot of people do these days to avoid stress. Isolating might be something you notice. Binge watching TV, scrolling social media, doing too much gaming. Another thing is multitasking, or even overcommitting to things might be something you're doing in order to not focus on a stress as well. So we just want you to start again by observing yourself and notice what stress-related habits you have.
And I think what Kitty is saying, observation is powerful. I said it last week. I always like the exercise for people to just pause and think, when I'm stressed, I blank, and really thinking about those habits that you're leaning into. And to give you an idea of maybe what to replace some of those, if it is a bad habit, we would really like for you to walk away with some possible stress management tools. And we'll talk about this in future shows in more detail. But just to get an idea of what these things look like is exercise, right? Lifting weights or going for a run or a walk. These things have a huge impact on your stress management. Getting outside. In our current lifestyles, so many people are not exposed to nature on a daily basis, and that's something that is one of our best medicines to treat stress, is just being in natural environments. Another thing is just working on breathing and different breathing techniques. Why this works, because some people just look at me like I'm crazy when I talk about just take a moment and breathe, is because when you are in such a high sympathetic drive and you take a moment to connect your mind and your body again by doing deep breathing, you're tapping into that parasympathetic drive again and telling them that they're okay, that they're safe. They're not running from a wild animal at this moment. Another idea is journaling. Lots of people get a lot out of just taking time to reflect on their day. There's lots of different journals, but it's a great way to stay in tune with what's going on in your life and your body. And one that I love is just practicing gratitude food. And it can have such a difference in your thought process and actually thinking on the positive in your day. The whole concept of positive psychology is something that makes such a difference in people's well-being and is not talked about enough. I would say that sometimes we just focus on all the negatives. I felt like that in the past in my work, just all day long I thought about everything negative, that I forgot to really pause and reflect on all those great things that were occurring in my life, which would have decreased the amount of stress that I felt.
And you may find that something like going outside helps you get to that positive mindset. So especially if you find yourself kind of circling around the negative mindset of things, really see if there's something physical or can you change the environment you're sitting in to help you reframe how you're thinking. And that may be getting together with a friend. So coming to our next pillar, which is social support, a lot of bad habits around that have been relying on texting or social media to communicate with people. So we've gotten in the habit of that. We all do that more frequently than actually calling someone or getting together with someone. So really trying to make an effort to reach out to a friend at least once a week. Maybe it's even just forcing yourself to stop and talk with someone at work on your way out the door. Things that can help you with this would be to set something recurring. So if you can set a monthly lunch date with people that make you happy or a weekly game night, even things like going to local festivals, looking on things like Lex Today to see what's going on locally and just force yourself to do that regularly and see if there's something that you're interested in that you can grab somebody to go with you and go to. Or maybe it's even just volunteering or something like hosting a potluck with your friends. Just set those things on your calendar, and that way you know you're going to hold yourself to doing it.
One thing that I like to do personally, and it actually dips into multiple pillars, so this is a big bang for your buck here, is when I'm dealing with something really stressful and just wanting to kind of talk about it, I call a friend, we set up a time to go for a walk, and we talk, we're together, and we're walking. That is a dynamic trio right there, and I can't recommend it enough because that whole time is just powerful, and I really can walk away feeling like I filled my cup by doing all three of those things at once. So get creative when you're thinking about social connection and how it can help you feel better. And one of those things I also like for people to reflect on, and I make myself reflect as well, is when I do different forms of social connection, how did it make me feel? Did this feel like it was more of a stress because it took time, or did when I walked away, not before I did it, because sometimes we'll talk ourselves out of things. But if you think about after the fact, wow, that felt great, I need to do that more, then that's when you really need to put time and effort into getting that specific social connection scheduled.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of times you can think, well, I've already got a busy schedule. That's just one more thing that seems stressful. But most of the time, once you actually go do those things, you're so happy that you did and you feel so much better.
Absolutely. So take the time, reflect, and then do it again.
Pillar number 6 brings us to avoiding harmful substances. We talked about this a little bit last week too, but just notice if you're making a drink or you're using a substance out of habit, you just get home and immediately open a bottle of wine because that's what you've done every day for the last 5 years. And it may not even be that you want it. It's just that's kind of the neural circuit that has happened in your brain, and so that's what you're doing. Or you might be doing it because that's just how you have found that you can unwind after the day and deal with the stress or stop feeling anxious from that. So, kind of just notice which one it is, and then that's where the habit loop can be really helpful because you understand your cue, which may just be walking in the door, and the reward is the relaxation that you feel from using that substance. So you may need to change the cue. And so maybe you don't need to go straight home from work. Maybe you need to stop at the park and take a walk, and then you don't get that same cue when you come home.
Another way of using that habit loop is also thinking, can I put a new habit in there? Like I walk in the door and instead you keep your same cue, but you replace the habit with something else. And that could be just, I'm going to go to my bedroom. I'm going to have 5 minutes of just peace for a moment. and then I'm going to walk back downstairs and then start my evening. Habit loops are great. Once you are able to recognize them, they are just such a good tool, and I really like using them specifically on this pillar of health.
Just changing things up can really make it much easier for you to stop doing something that you don't want to be doing.
Absolutely.
As much. Yeah. A lot of these habits overlap, and like Sarah was talking about, you can be social while you're exercising or while you're eating healthy food. Think about how you can address multiple of these pillars at one time in order to make these habits. But remember to just focus on one thing at a time. Do not overwhelm yourself, and keep trying if you don't stick to it at first. Really try to be patient with yourself.
We have these huge goals, and this is, again, going back to the idea of atomic habits, is you're just excited, you're motivated, and you put all the things down. I want to do, you may be listening to the show and it's like, oh, I want to do all these things. And I'm going to encourage you, don't. Because we want you to get some really solid habits done first and then build on them. So try to keep it down to 1, 2, 3, not beyond that, so you can make them solid and then build on them so that you can sustain them. Because overall, we want you to do this for life.
This isn't just you're going to do something for 2 or 3 weeks. This is habits that you're going to continue forever. Like I know for me, I've been working on these for about 2 years, and I'm so much better off than I was 2 years ago. And I hope that 2 years from now, I'm even better than I am now. But I wouldn't have been able to get to this place if I had just done so many things at once. So I just keep adding little things, and that's fine that it takes a long time, because this isn't a rush.
Yes, and same here. Both of us, we're going to talk about our own journeys, and we're not there yet either. We really want you to fall in love with the process, because the more you fall in love with the process, it's going to keep you motivated to keep going instead of only focusing on the outcome.
We hope that this episode on habits is helpful for you, and we have some supplemental information on our website that we're building called Better Health Library to go along with this show. So if you're wanting to know more, or you're wanting some more resources on how to create better habits, go ahead and take a look at our website, betterhealthlibrary.com. It's a good place to start when you're trying to create some new, lasting, healthy lifestyle changes.
And next week, we're going to discuss how to approach obstacles and setbacks when you're working on lifestyle changes, as well as some common questions and barriers to lifestyle medicine, and really coach you on how to talk to your doctor about incorporating these into your health plan.
And we also love to hear from you. We really want to hear from you about your own habit change stories and maybe some struggles you're having with keeping those regular. And don't forget to let us know if you have any questions or topics you want us to address, especially about nutrition, which we're going to focus on next month. You can email us at questions@thestartinggatepodcast.com, and we look forward to hearing you.
And don't forget to subscribe and share the podcast. Talk to y'all next week.